I'll also say a lot of these rappers and people that are in hip hop are new money. Most black wealth is new money. And so what that means is a lot of them are coming at it with a scarcity mindset, meaning they don't want to go back to poverty. They just very recently left poverty, or at least not as wealthy as they are now. And so to be asking these people who are just getting to these spaces, who are probably taking care of myriad of people in their homes and back where they're from in their community, it's hard to just be like, listen, why don't you go and build this and build a school and go make all of these infrastructures that will help the collective black people? And they're like, bro, hey, I got a mama and a daddy, and we're just trying to live good, and we're trying to experience a piece of the American pie that we've just been systematically left out of for so long. However, if we're talking about the decline of a community and the quality and culture of a community, and if we've seen that be perpetually bad, and then we see this big blaring common denominator that most people within that community gravitate towards, why wouldn't we be able to just objectively speak on something that we see with our own eyes? I think that's a cop-out, guys. I'm sorry. Hello, family, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Raven, thought leader, therapist, and theologian, and I am so happy once again to have you here with me today. If you're new here, welcome. Have a seat. Clap it up for yourself. Make yourself at home and get comfortable, because oftentimes in our conversations here, if you're not new here, you know, we don't always say the most comfortable things, but it's okay because we're capable of it, and we're capable of critical thinking. And that's what the goal is here in the bastion of critical thinking. We want to challenge the world to think more critically, more deeply about things that are happening within culture. And our goal is to reform culture. Say it with me, class. Reform culture. Because we are capable of it. I'm not saying that we can fix everything overnight, right? But if we as individuals do our part in shifting our interest, shifting the things that we watch, shifting the things that we engage in, then we can start to shift the dynamic within our culture and make some real changes and see some positive changes, because I know we're getting tired collectively of the decay. I know we are. You don't have to tell me. I know. Anyway, so with that in mind, today's video will be no different from that. We'll be reviewing a clip from Joe Budden's podcast about Dr. Umar calling for, well, no, he didn't call for an end to hip hop. That was me. He just essentially said that he made the case of what has hip hop done for the black community in the 50 years that it's been in existence. Because, you know, we just had the 50-year anniversary of hip hop. And so he just made the case of like, what has it done, child? Like, and I think that's a fair argument to make, but apparently the folks is mad, child, and it went viral. And so as a person who previously called for the end or hashtag kill hip hop, I forgot what hashtag I came up with, but I do need to solidify it because that was me first. I'm just kidding. Well, in recent days, it was me. We're just going to go with the concept that it was me. Anyway, I called for it recently. And so to see him do it, you know, it was just a little, it was validating, I will say. I don't have any thoughts about the Dr. Umar or the legitimacy of who he is. Honestly, that's a whole other conversation for a whole other day. I just know that this clip went viral, and it's in the wheelhouse of things that I often talk about. So I was like, let me review this on my channel. So let's have a conversation. Always remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'm just going to review it honestly with you guys. I'm just going to watch the clip piece by piece. This will be my first time watching the clip, and yeah, let's hop in together.
Oh, hip hop in 50 years has made sure that black people now are respected, and no, that's never going to happen.
What has it done for the people?
It gave you, you listen to hip hop music and you were inspired at some point, no?
Nigga, I'm leaving.
We're moving goalposts.
Say what you want about Dr. Umar, but your boy is funny, truly. Like, and honestly, I don't want to get into a debate about the legitimacy of any of his claims or who he is or even just his role as a psychologist. But nonetheless, the man is hilarious. That's what none of us can take away from him.
Goalposts.
It ain't done shit in 50 years for the community. It made individuals rich, and that's it.
It then gave jobs to.
I think this is a great topic. Amazing. I do think it's a great topic.
But the drug dealer is.
We should have led with this. Yeah. We bums.
The
Ain't no
drug dealer
more.
is essential to the black community in the ghetto. You can't tell me that. Somebody grew up in the hood.
Hip-hop ain't done shit concretely beneficial to the black community.
That's
you gave
that's
me
incorrect.
fashion. The
That's
first thing
incorrect.
out of your mouth was fashion.
I gave you fashion, and you started yelling over me.
What else?
But then also, then there's technological advancement. Podcasting, for example. Look at all the black people that now have access to jobs and ways to make money due to that. We're still talking about rap. We're still talking about cinema. We're still talking about these camera operators, these new people coming up
Let me
with
make it
new
real concrete for you.
A man's be wildin', truly. But anyway, I understand Mouse's perspective. He's essentially saying, well, it's given us opportunities that otherwise black people probably wouldn't have opportunities or access to, because let's just be honest, people hire in proximity. It's large. Sometimes racism is a part of the hiring process, but more often than not, especially as we've advanced in our society, people hire in proximity. And so what happens is, if white boy Johnny and his grandfather, let's say Johnny's grandfather owned a production company, then more than likely he's going to continue to hire within his family, or let's say his family retires out of that industry. Well, he'll also refer the people, his comrades, which are probably more than likely white, to be in that space as well, or to get those jobs as well. And so anyway, because hiring happens in proximity, a lot of black people, hiring in proximity and also racism, but have been left out of these rooms and left out of these spaces only to be entertainers rather than to be behind the camera and be in leadership positions and also just production positions. And so anyway, with that in mind, I understand Mouse's position. He's saying, so because of hip hop though, and which is a predominantly or dominated by black people, black artists, black creatives, we now have opportunities that we otherwise wouldn't have had, and we've been able to rise into spaces within higher places of media and TV production and all of that because of hip hop. So I understand his position, but I just don't know how much it outweighs the detriments that hip hop has had on our community either. Like, I understand his position though, so I will concede that. We're going to start with some friendly fire.
Give me a relevant institution that hip hop built in any community, anywhere in America in 50 fucking years.
I just told you. No, you didn't. I just told you concrete. People that would not have access.
I didn't say individuals. I said an institution.
I said people.
Where's the bank of hip hop for the black community?
The definition of the word people means not an individual. So I'm telling you, people that now or 50 years ago.
It's a long clip, but I'm letting it go. I'll send it to you in a minute.
I asked you, what did they do for the community? You can't give me nothing because they ain't done
people
shit for
from the community can now work in a music industry that there was never going to be a space for them.
What the fuck? That's individualism. That ain't helping us. That's bullshit.
Individualism. He's a Pan-Africanist, right? And so Dr. Umar's position will always be the collective. Collectivism is central to Pan-Africanism because it's about the uplifting of African people, as they'd say, across the diaspora, right? So in every country, every facet of the world where a black body exists, Pan-Africans want us to collectively come together and rise so that we can help all of our plights together. So yeah, an individualistic, capitalistic centered argument will always enrage a Pan-Africanist, particularly a Dr. Umar style Pan-Africanist. But I will say though, as much as I am empathetic to the collectivist plight, because I do believe because we were oppressed in such mass numbers, and not just with black people, I think together we stand, divided we fall, right? It's an old cliche and old aphorism that kind of has some remnants of truth to it for sure, no doubt. However, I will say you can't on one end say that like black people have been so downtrodden, so oppressed by so many variables in our country and just across the diaspora, and then also be angry when black people try to individually help on the mass and scale on the scale that they can as individuals. I just think it's counterproductive to our plight if you do care about the uplifting of black people specifically, and all people, I always say that, but since we're talking about the plight of black people, if you genuinely care about that, you can't be angry with how certain people help certain people within that community. I think it's a fair argument to say that and the resources that I have invested into these specific people, and I've tried to help these specific people. And if we all do that relative to our own experiences and our own capacities as far as money and resources go, we'll potentially see real growth in our communities. And so I don't see anything necessarily wrong with that. However, I do understand Dr. Umar's Umar's position, which is that, yeah, but these are rich people, and rich people have the capacity to do so much more. But to the extent that they do so much more, then it would potentially put them in jeopardy, because then they'd have to give up some resources. And that's a whole other conversation, and it depends on what kind of economic system you subscribe to. But since this is a capitalist country, we know that ain't happening. People are not giving up more of their wealth for the sake of the collective. That's just not happening. And also, what I will say is, I'm empathetic to this position, because I'll also say a lot of these rappers and people that are in hip hop are new money. Most black wealth is new money. And so what that means is a lot of them are coming at it with a scarcity mindset, meaning they don't want to go back to poverty. They just very recently left poverty, or at least not as wealthy as they are now. And so to be asking these people who are just getting to these spaces, who are probably taking care of myriad of people in their homes and back where they're from in their community, it's hard to just be like, listen, why don't you go and build this and build a school and go make all of these infrastructures that will help the collective black people? And they're like, bro, hey, I got a mama and a daddy, and we're just trying to live good, and we're trying to experience a piece of the American pie that we've just been systematically left out of for so long, right? So I get this argument. I really do get both arguments, and I'm trying to make the case for both of them so it doesn't just sound like I'm being this condescending, one-sided person who hates hip-hop, because that's not me. Okay, let's keep going.
Elon Musk got a couple black people on the payroll. That don't mean shit.
Elon Musk didn't come from black. He's not a black person.
My point is, you can get a job from anywhere, whether they black or not.
But now
That's
you're
not
getting a job.
benefit.
Now black people.
But you're still talking about individualism, bro. A few people. You've been around for 50 years. The most popular music genre in the world. Billions and billions of dollars. And all you can tell me about is a few people can get jobs? That's bullshit when you look at the cost that the black community has had to pay for hip hop.
Listen, you heard Ish even said it. That's a good point. I'm hearing you. I have conceded to your argument that a few black people, several black people, I won't even say few because that's a little too condescending. Several black people have been able to rise out of poverty and also get some really great jobs that they otherwise wouldn't have had access to. Cool. But do the benefits outweigh the negatives or the ways that it's been harmful? Can't say that it does. I can't say that it does. And also it speaks to at what cost, right? And maybe you can make the case that black poverty and black oppression has been such that we have been unfortunately placed in positions where we've had to do some really harmful, immoral things to rise and to change our plight in this country. And so I can see how you can make that case, but how long? And even if that's the case, let's just say we accepted that as our plight. So as a person who is just observing it, are we not allowed to critique it and say, yeah, I see how you could come to that conclusion considering all the things that you've gone through, but that don't make it right. And I can still critique it and say, that's real bad. That's immoral. The things and the messages and the people, culture that hip hop is perpetuating, it's harmful and it's raggedy. As an objective observer, why can't we just make that critique without being bashed in our heads? Anyway.
That's a good point. But
a whole generation, 2-3 generations of black kids growing up thinking the best thing you can do is be a damn gangster.
I don't think hip hop necessarily is responsible for multiple generations growing up thinking that the best thing they can do is be a gangster. You got to think hip hop permeated from the black culture and black community. The only reason hip hop was a thing is because black people it was an art form that was birthed from black people's oppression and pain, right? And so it was just a creative art form that was birthed from our community and from our culture. So gangster culture already existed, and then we created music around it. And so now hip hop is perpetuating that narrative that, to be a gangster, to be whatever. I don't want to say too many words because I'll sound like a coon. But to be all of those things that hip hop perpetuates, yeah, that's what's cool. That's the best thing that you can rise to as a black person, especially a black young man. Nevertheless, I don't think hip hop created it. I just think it was birthed and permeated from it, something that was already existing.
I think that hip hop has definitely been detrimental to our culture, but I also think that hip hop has, when you start defining community, if hip hop gives, Shari Bryant was a motherfucking intern. Mm-hmm. I don't know what her check look like? I don't know nothing. I would assume she's paid very, very well. You owe that to hip hop. LL Cool J came and sat up here. You owe that to hip hop. And so the trickle down are their children, are their family members, et cetera, that might have opened businesses, that might have bought property, that might have done a whole bunch of things. It's spider webs that come from hip hop that are beneficial to the black community. Just because you don't know of them, that don't mean that they don't exist.
Okay, my man. First of all, he does know about them. And let me not, because I don't want to speak for Dr. Umar, but that's an obvious thing that we can all acknowledge. Yes, and he did acknowledge it in the clip. Yes, it's given great jobs and great opportunities to several black people. Cool. Okay, great. But what does that have to do with what you said in your beginning statement? But it's been extremely detrimental. Or he didn't say extremely. Let me not put words in his mouth. It's been detrimental. If it's been detrimental, then all we're asking is that we really weigh out the pros and cons. What we're trying to do here is just weigh out the pros and cons. Yeah, Dr. Umar was maybe a little exaggerative in his language. It's done nothing good for black. Well, I won't say exaggerative because I actually agree with that. But I do understand their argument, especially as men who are benefiting from hip hop culture, right? They're doing a hip hop podcast and they've been able to rise to meteoric wealth and fame and celebrity because of hip hop culture and just the genre that is hip hop. Okay, so I understand why they would be empathetic or vitriolic towards an argument that Dr. Umar is making. That's fair. But all I'm saying is, just be honest. You can say, listen, we've risen to success in ways that would have been impossible for us. And so, yeah, I can't just say this outright. However, it has been detrimental in a lot of ways, right? So maybe you don't fully agree with him because you've seen the benefits of it in your life. Let's stop playing and acting like it hasn't been harmful.
He
said 50 years.
He's not even qualified enough to speak on the music.
Not qualified. Why? Because he's not exactly in the hip hop community, because he's not a rapper, because he's not a hip hop commentator. Like, what makes a person qualified to speak on the detriments in their own community that they're passionate about, that they are actually experts and skilled in and well versed in? Dr. Umar, for all of his flaws, is well versed in the plight of black people and the plight of black Americans specifically, and some of the ills that have happened to black people. I'm just trying to understand where would the qualifications need to come in. I'm assuming he's trying to say again, like, oh, well, there are nuances within hip hop and the hip hop space and within hip hop history that if you're not well versed in, you can't necessarily say has been harmful or good to black people. And okay, of course, we're all experts in our own specific fields, and obviously Joe Budden in this podcast is more well versed in hip hop culture. Fair, I'll give you that. However, if we're talking about the decline of a community and the quality and culture of a community, and if we've seen that be perpetually bad, and then we see this big blaring common denominator that most people within that community gravitate towards, why wouldn't we be able to just objectively speak on something that we see with our own eyes? I think that's a cop-out, guys. I'm sorry.
That's true.
Having a hold on today's society where the kids are killing each other.
He's not qualified.
But that wasn't
enough
50
to
years of
speak
hip-hop.
That's not how hip hop begun.
But that's currently.
Cool.
Currently, the music, the drill music.
Okay, I get his argument. He's essentially saying hip hop was birthed as, like I said earlier, it was a creative outlet for a group of oppressed people, right? And a people group who were exhausted by the police and exhausted with the conditions of the communities that they were thrust into. And so black people, because we're so rhythmically just literate and diverse and cool and talented, and talent literally reverberates through our bodies, right? We've always been able to make make lemons out of lemonade, or lemonade out of lemons, right? We've always been able to birth something that is creative and catchy and electrifying, and that spreads across people, and that turns into other things too. We're really, really creative because we're such a resilient people. And so that is the culture and essence of where hip hop started as, and what it started as, and what it was supposed to be. But Joe, it's morphed into something way worse. We got to be like I will concede to your point, but please come to ours as well. If we can't critique it, and if we can't have honest conversations about it, then we'll never get out of this cycle that we're in of perpetuating and pacifying garbage and bullcrap that's actually hurting our babies and hurting all of us. Because I know we always make it about the kids. It's hurting all of us.
And the music that is happening.
And that's not currently. There is no drill rap on the Billboard Top 20. It's not a one.
See, I don't even think
it's not a one. I know that there's storylines that go out because of propaganda and shit do be happening.
What does drill rap being on the billboards have to do with anything? So okay, fine. You can say, well, drill rap, that's not the biggest piece of hip hop that's big right now. Okay, fine. Drill rap, if you're not familiar with it, look it up and brace yourself. But anyway, you can make the case that, well, drill rap is the biggest, not even the biggest piece of hip hop that's big right now. So why are we condemning it as if that's the only thing pop is representative of? Fair. Let's put niche drill rap over there in its corner. I mean, there's a big group of people that enjoy that kind of music, and we should be concerned about that. But fine, let's put it in a corner. So then what hip hop songs are being perpetuated and popularized? Oh, okay, so not drill rap, kill 'em, shoot 'em dead rap, fine. But then pop a pill, pop my pussy, I mean, F my baby daddy, what, pink, like, oh, come on, guys. Come on. Okay, like, yeah.
Nas has invested in the ring.
Yes.
Right? Nas has invested in a whole bunch of shit that Dr. Umar may not know he's invested in. If Nas employs 1,000 people, those 1,000 people's kids could potentially go to college based off of Nas employing them.
But who's saying that he's employing black people?
Hold on, let me jump in with him right quick. That's part of my issue with Dr. Umar. He sounds like somebody that ain't so aware. You know, I sat here last pod and was like, I like the music, not the culture.
Yeah.
That's what he sound like.
Yeah, that is exactly
what Dr. Umar sound like.
Okay, bottom line is, I just think that they're misguided in their perspective, and I think that they are too close to the subject matter to be able to speak objectively and educationally on it. Joe is saying nobody like me with my background would be able to have the meteoric rise that I've been able to have except for a culture and an industry like hip-hop and a genre like hip-hop, and I respect that. I really do, because you're right. I know the plight of black people. Again, I am a black girl that comes from the hood and comes from poverty, right? I was hood adjacent. I will say I grew up in a lower middle class family, and we didn't necessarily live directly to shoot them up, kill them dead kind of environments that a lot of black children unfortunately have to grow up in. But I am hood adjacent, right? All of my family, all of the friends that I grew up, the schools that I went to were all in those same areas where people that do rise in hip hop culture, they grew up in. And so anyway, with that in mind, I can make the case that if it wasn't for this genre, a person like me wouldn't have been able to rise. But I also want us to finish that thought, because I want you to understand the implications of what you're saying there. If you're saying that if it wasn't for a genre that is so detrimental to my community and that is so harmful and that perpetuates such harmful messaging, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have been able to rise. So what you're saying is that black people in those positions in oppressed, marginalized communities only can rise if they compromise and sacrifice their moral integrity. They don't have the capacity to rise out of those circumstances and do something that is upstanding, that contributes positively to the world. The only thing that can get them out of that is if they participate in modern day minstrelsy. Because let's keep it a buck. Hip hop, the reason why so many white people are into it, even though it's like so counter to everything that they've ever lived or experienced, is because they like to engage in the minstrel show of it all, right? We don't live this. We don't do these old things. We don't do the same things that black people do, but we just want to be a part of it because we just love seeing y'all shucking and driving and doing that crazy bad stuff. Like, we got to be willing to be honest about that. But the implications of what you're saying is that the only way that black people can rise is if they sacrifice and compromise their own well-being, their family's well-being, with regard to the narrative and the messaging that they're pushing out. I think that's limited, and I think that's short-sighted, and I think it's extremely disrespectful. Black people are more than this. Black people are more than this creative outlet that has just morphed and turned into something absolutely opposite of everything that it was born to be. And until we have the opportunity to be able to have open and honest conversations about it and be honest about it, being willing to concede to some of the parts that, like, yeah, it's done some beautiful things as far as giving black people jobs in industries that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to rise in. But also, we gotta be willing to start to shift the narrative around what it is, because this ain't it, y'all. But anyway, push back on me. Let's have some conversation about it in the comments. I'd be willing to hear your perspective. I know y'all are going to clown me, and y'all are going to say, oh, but No Name, Raven and this rapper, Raven and that rapper. The fact that you're having to pull these rappers out of obscurity is proving my point, guys. I don't know if you guys understand that, right? Like, the fact that you have to consistently pull out these random rappers, it proves the point that I'm making, which is that it's detrimental. And this isn't me being anti-black, because again, I understand the environments and the circumstances that would birth such decay and degradation in our conversation, in our perspectives, in our interests. And so all I'm saying is we need to untether ourselves from it, so that way this kind of stuff isn't actually entertaining to us. Right? And those of us who have been able to make it out the hood, or who have been able to see the other side, we need to stop perpetuating it, so that way it isn't as popularized as it is. And so it can become more and more obscure and niche. So that way we can start to chart a new path around what our palates like with regard to music and entertainment in general. But this stuff gotta die. And the first way that we do that, and the way that we make that happen, is by being able to be honest about the reality of hip hop. It's bad and it's harmful. Okay, I'm done. Write me, comment, subscribe, like, all of the things. But let's have some conversation about this, because I feel like I am objectively right. I'm gonna be honest with you. However, I want to have dialogue about this, because I recognize that this position won't be everybody's position. But I just want you to be an honest actor in your critiques of my argument, if you will critique it, right? Or if you agree, let me know too. Anyway, all right, guys, I love you so much. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I think that's it. I'll talk to you later. Bye.